Okay, Friday again. Let me test to see if everything is working fine. Okay, sounds cool. Hello everyone. It's Friday again, and thank you for joining me in TGI Pulsar episode 8. And for this week's episode, I'm going um, to be a it's a um, I'm going not going to like focus on a single area. I'm going to just talk about what's new in the latest release 251. It's like kind of bug fixes releases, but we still have a lot of interesting features, enhancement, and bug fixes that happen in 251. And I will just use this episode to kind of talk about apps 251. And I'm going to copy the my show notes into the YouTube channel. And if you're interested in checking out the kind of the structure, feel free to click the link in the in the YouTube chat channel. And if you want to say hi to me, feel free to type in the chat so I know you are there. Yeah. So 251 was released last week. It's we call it kind of a bug fix release, but it's still including a lot of changes that coming from many contributors, and some of the changes are kind of porting back from master, which is kind of uh, are planned to be released in 260, and 260 should be also coming in a few weeks as well, hopefully like mid-May to late May. And as part of this 251 release, we usually have a good um, right. I think the release manager usually putting up a very comprehensive release notes. So if you click to the let me see, click the version, and you'll find the version says this is the latest stable release. And if you click the release note, it will take you to a release note page that is listing out these changes that are included in 251. Um, we kind of organize the release note in a way. First, highlight the major changes, and then bug fixes and enhancement. And we can also within individual sections, we break down into server side fixes, like storage fixes, changes component by component, and then focus covering the clients and different type of clients. So I think we also write a blog post in the Post blog that is that was written by the release manager Guangning, and he basically highlights bunch of the um, major features, enhancement, or bug fixes that is included in 251. I'm kind of use this blog post as a baseline to kind of convert it into my talk today, and but I kind of do it a bit different. So I usually when talking about a new release, I think the most important thing is to realize what kind of what are the dependency changed in this release. And I want to highlight a few things. The first thing is the native fix. So I think before in 250, we use native 4143. We upgrade it to 4145 final. Why there's an upgrade here is so if you go to actually let me just open the release notes here so I can kind of do a side by side compare. Uh, yeah. So there was an issue in the native 4143. It basically like prevent native using the Linux native APO transport. That would result in like parser broker failing over to using an IO event loop group when you are running the brokers on Linux, and that would cause a performance degradation because you didn't fully leverage the Linux native APO capability. So the fix that is in 251 is upgrade to the native to 4145. So definitely if you're running Parser 250, you should considering upgrade to 251 if you see any performance degradations in your system. And the next major kind of a dependency upgrade is upgrading from Avro 1.8 to 1.9. That is because 1.8 is already I think a couple years old, and after the latest release is to 1.9. And but I think there's a breaking change in Avro 1.9, that is it changed the logical type from JOTA type time to JSR 310 standard. But in order to kind of making sure from a parser user perspective, we can still maintain backward compatibility, we kind of making the default behavior still stick to JOTA time. And if you want to use JSR 310, then you need to specify or enable a JSR 310 convention by setting the schema definition builder to like to be true. And for more details, you can still go back to this release notes, and you will find the pull request, and you can still go through the kind of detailed pull request is um, the it would talk about why we do the upgrade and what kind of changes we made during this upgrade. And for backward compatibility, we you don't need to worry about the upgrade because we kind of convert the default behavior to still stick to Jota time. If you happen to use time, logical time type, if you don't use that, you don't even worry about that. And the next dependency upgrade is zookeeper dependency. So usually, if you deploy a parser cluster, you don't really upgrade zookeeper quite a lot because zookeeper has been quite stable and there's not much newer version like features coming out from zookeeper. But in this upgrade, I think there's a bug that was identified in Zookeeper like 3435. That is, it will cause a split brain situation when lock disk becomes full. So for more details, you can still go to this Zookeeper bug to see all the context. In terms of for parser, we include the fix that so we upgrade the Zookeeper version to include a fix that fix the split brain situation on this lock disk full. So if you kind of you were hit by this bug before, then we are encouraging you kind of upgrade Zookeeper dependency to 357, and which would be shipped as part of the 251 dependency. So that this is kind of the dependency updates. In terms of major feature wise, is uh, I think a lot of people using JWT authentication and it basically enable authentication and authorization in your Pulsar cluster. But currently, before 251, Pulsar authentication mechanism doesn't support refresh the authentication credential, and Material kind of contribute PIP, that is PIP 55, that enable the refresh authenticate enable the ability for broker to refresh authentication credential. So the use case for this is for kind of TLS certificates that has expiry date, and as well as JWT has this TTL expiry settings, and or any other authentication framework or authentication provider that you are implementing that would including expiration. So the mechanism is mainly kind of in the authentication state that introduce a method for authentication provider to check if the authentication state is expired. And if it's expired, that it would trigger a method called refresh authentication, and this would depends on the implementation of the authentication provider that might kind of send back a challenge to the client, and the client would kind of refresh the authentication in and resend the kind of authentication state. And in order to enable these features, you just need kind of first thing, you need making sure the authentication provider support refresh authentication credentials. And if you're implementing your own authentication provider, just making sure your authentication provider implement these two methods. Then you can configure authentication refresh checks seconds. And by default, the default JW token authentication provider and TOS authentication provider are already enabled with this capability. So this is the kind of the next. There's kind of one of the major features that was included in 251. And the next one is more about a bundle split algorithm. I think before 250, I kind of explained kind of the bundle split algorithm in our previous episode, and kind of recap a bit about what uh, what does bundle split mean. So in Pulsar, kind of topics are organized in three hierarchies. The top level is tenant, and under tenant you have namespace, and within the namespace you have many topics. And these topics are kind of organized into sorry, these topics are formed as a consensus hashing ring, and this consensus hashing ring is divided into different ranges, and each range is called a namespace bundle. And when a broker assign topics to brokers, it would assign the topics as a bundle to the brokers. So it doesn't assign topics individually. So it assign topics in batch. So in this example, let's assume that we have 6 topics, and it would be hashed into a hash ring. And in this hash ring, we have four ranges. So each range you would have uh, two topics, and the other two range will only have one topic. And the bundle will then be assigned to the brokers. And when it assigned to brokers, then the the hash key for the topics that fall into that hash range would be assigned to the broker or serving to the and served by the broker that when this bundle is assigned to the brokers. So as you can see here, the assignment is not kind of great. It's because it's using an algorithm called range equally divide. So with that being said, if I have four bundles, if I want to split a single bundle, I would split at the middle point of this hash range. And so it depends on how the topics are kind of hashed into the range. You might see the topics are kind of slightly um, not evenly distributed across the bundles, especially if you don't have a lot of topics, you only have small number of topics, then you will see some of the bundles that don't have any topics, and some of the bundles have more topics. So when this assignment happens, you will see a broker is owning more topics than other brokers. That is not a great experience for people don't have a lot of topics, but people only have a small kind of number of topics. Then they want to see, okay, uh, I if I have 10 topics, I want these 10 topics are kind of equally distribute across the brokers. So in 251, we basically introduce a bundle split algorithm, and that bundle split algorithm is basically telling you what kind of algorithm what you want to do. Originally, it was you divide the bundles by ranges. So you find the middle point of a range and then split the range. But we introduced a new algorithm called topic count equally divided. And the topic count equally divided means for a given for a given range, I I find the split point by kind of counting the total number of topics within this range. Like if say I have four topics in within this bundle, and if I want to split the range, I will making sure after the split, I have two topics in one of the bundle, the other two topic in the other bundle. So I can we can we can make sure the topics are kind of evenly distributed across bundles. Once it's evenly distributed across bundles, then when they are assigned to the brokers, you will most likely see like the topic and the number of topics are kind of evenly distributed across the brokers. And to enable this algorithm, it's also very easy. Let me just show you quickly. So I can go to okay, I need to pull my terminal here. Sorry. Sorry. Okay. One second. So if you have downloaded the Pulsar 251, so if you check the broker configuration file, you should be able to see there's a new configuration settings called default namespace bundle split algorithm. Uh, so this is the algorithm that you can use for split a given bundle. That is you can configure the default behavior. And there's another setting is called supported namespace bundle split algorithm that you can configure. Let's say I want to support both of these algorithm because one of my namespace might have a lot of topics. The other namespace might have less number of topics. So by setting different kind of namespace bundle split algorithm, then it would help me to kind of evenly distribute the topic accounts between across the brokers. So uh, once you set the bundle split, that is when broker want to split the bundle, it will use the algorithms to do that. If you want to manually split the bundle using Pulsar admin tool, you can still do that. So let me just give you a quick demo. So I have a cluster running that deploy using the Helm chart, and let's see. Uh, okay, let's see. I want to first check the namespace policies. Um, namespace policy. So as you can see here, so it has a bundle section. Right now, okay, I need use a different one. I believe I create one before TGIP episode 8. Okay. So the names within the namespace policy, you are able to see kind of this all the bundles in their boundaries and the number of the bundles. I kind of use that as an example to kind of demonstrate kind of what. But by default, I already changed the default split algorithm to kind of topic count. So during my initial kind of split, it doesn't find a middle range because if it's a middle range, you usually will see it end up with 0. But initial split was based on topic count, so it kind of split in a different split boundary. So if you want to uh, double check here is I can show you the so in the split bundle we also add another kind of options called split algorithm, and that would apply to the uh, if you remember in the broker, this would it says what is the support namespace bundle split algorithm that is kind of limiting the algorithm you want to support by the broker. So if you let's say if you take range equally divide out of the configuration, so when you want to manually split the bundle, you are not able to use that algorithm. But in this case, I'm kind of using the I support both algorithm, so I can just let me change this. I need to find a bundle boundary. So I have 3 bundles, and the first one is 0 to this guy, and let's try with the range equally divide algorithm. Interesting. I need to find what's wrong with here. Let's try a different one. Must be. Okay, try the topic count equally divided. I think there's something wrong with my broker. I need to double check what's going on there. Uh, so usually when this happen, it goes. Let me double check one thing very quickly. Let me see. Oh, oops. It has been running a while. Uh, anyway, to save the time, let me just create a different one, and I just want to show you the capability of this. Let's just create a different. Uh, I think. Oh, I see. I see what's going on there. I probably make a mistake before. Uh, because it probably doesn't have any topic. Let's try again, one more again. Hmm. Oh, 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 oh. Because I don't have, sorry. Yep. Let's see. Interesting. Uh, I need to check what's going on here. I think I used the wrong namespace. Okay. 1 second. Eventually equal set. It should be TGI TGIP episode 008. So, oh, whoops. Yep. I was using the wrong namespace, and it doesn't have even have that bundle range. So it just that caused a problem. And as you can see here, so you can specify the range equally divided range, and then you can use that range to kind of split the bundles. And you can also change this, but you need because it becomes a different um, bundle range. I need to double making sure you can also specify the topic count equally divided algorithm to split your like bundle. So here you go. So if you go to check the policy again, so you are able to see. So it's kind of as you can see here, it's kind of divided in. It's not a range equally divided because if it's a range equally, you should probably get 0x1215 something, but it's actually split in a 01951 because it's the kind of the split is using the topic count to find the split boundary. So with this mechanism in place, you kind of very flexible to kind of it's you are able to support both namespace that has a very large number of topics and a namespace doesn't have very large of topic. So it will making sure uh, can support both of use cases and making sure that load balancing can do a great job for your cluster. So try out, and I think this is a great add-on to the whole Pulsar load balancing architecture. And in terms of the admin tool, I think in 251 we add a lot of admin tool enhancement. Uh, I think one of the inconvenient thing that people usually see from Pulsar admin tool is some of the command only work for non-partition topic. Some of the command works for a partition topic, and so you have to find a way to, if you want to operating, if you want to make this operation happen on a partition topic, you have to find all the partitions for this partition topic and run the command individually. And in the past 251 and as well on going 260, we did a lot of enhancements on improving the admin tool, making sure you're able to kind of taking the operations to operate on the partition topic. And one of the example is before 251, you only can unload an individual partition or a non-partition topic. In 251, we kind of add the support. You are able to unload a partition topic. So that is the admin tool changer. And we also add a bunch of the, so a funny thing is a lot of time that when people introducing features to Pulsar, people usually introducing starting at the broker level, but but didn't like add these settings to the namespace level. I think in the past kind of couple months, I think a lot of newer features that kind of sorry, the broker level settings are kind of added to the namespace level. So you are actually able to control those behavior on a per namespace basis. Like for example, in 251 we introduced the delay messages. Then this delay messages is delay deliver is control on the broker level. Then in the 251 we add a flag to the namespace policy to allow you to kind of control the delay delivery behavior for each namespace. uh, I believe you should be able to see here. Oh, I see. If because I didn't set that namespace policy, so there's no field there. But there's a mechanism for you to enable and disable the delay delivery for messages. So if you want to see here, you can check Apostle admin namespaces. You can find delayed. So you can set delay delivery uh, on a per namespace basis, and you can set the um, peak time for the delay delivery kind of tracking. Yeah. Um, the other major changes is the supporting config the offloader policies on per namespace basis. Because before 251, you have if you want to enable tier storage, you have to do let me see. You need to configure the offloader on the broker level. So all the namespace are kind of using the same settings, but it's for sure it's not very convenient. You're basically offloading all kind of all the namespace data into one kind of S3 bucket. And in 251, we kind of introducing the uh, ability to set the offloader uh, policy within the namespace policy. So as you can see here in the namespace command, you're able to set uploader policy, and you're able to specify bucket and as well as driver. So if you have a cluster that running, you're able to have one namespace upload to GCS, the other namespace upload to AWS. But I'm not sure if anyone is going to do that. But it's just like we have the ability to do that. And the you can also specify the bucket. So and as well as the kind of the max block size and read buffer region. So it's all you're able to config on the per namespace basis right now. So definitely that is a great feature, and I think the changes kind of original was developed by Clever Cloud, and they're contributing that change back to the community. Uh, the other one is the on the behavior changes is the in I think 251 we introduced this concept auto topic auto topic creation. Yeah. So there's a flag called allow topic creation, and you also can specify what kind of the topic you want to create, but when auto topic creation happen, and the default is true, and default creation type is non-partition. You can change that. In 251, I think we introduced the uh, subscription auto creation as well. It doesn't seem like we add that settings to the conf, but there's a flag that is you're able to disable subscription auto creation when the auto topic creation is turned off. So that is the kind of subscription related behavior. And the next is in Pulsar, there's a feature called delete inactive topics. Inactive, and I forgot settings. Yep. So there's a feature called broker delete inactive topics. What does that mean? Is the if a topic there's no producer, there's no subscription, and there's no consumer connect to waiting for masters, Pulsar would automatically delete this topic after a certain period, and that the period is controlled by the inactive topic frequency second. So like how often, so how long we Pulsar will treat the topic as inactive. But there are some of the use cases is I have a topic and I am using regular subscription, so I don't know, uh, so I don't control, like I don't know what kind of which topic I connect to. But the producer would disconnect after this topic is not used anymore, and you want to making sure Pulsar also able to clean up the topics. So we introduced this kind of another setting called broker delete inactive topics mode. What the mode means, we actually have a second mode coming up. The original behavior is delete when there's no subscription, and for sure no producer. The new mode we introduced is called delete when subscription are all caught up. Means there's no producer. There's the producer is not no any producer connect to broker, and the you are okay to have subscriptions, but all the subscription are already caught up. Means the the master there's no backlog in any of the subscription. Then after a certain of time, this topic would be treated as inactive, and a broker would delete these inactive topics. So that is the setting that is available in 251. If if you have use cases that want to enjoy this setting, definitely try out this setting, and it will simplify a lot when you are using regular subscription for design your applications. And on the stats in monitoring side, I think we add more stats in the topic stats and as well as consumer stats. Right now, I think you are able to see backlog size in the topic stats, as well as we are adding two fields is the last consumed timestamp and last timestamp. So you are able to use these two timestamp to tracking whether you whether like why your consumer are kind of stuck at receiving messages. Is it because the postal broker doesn't dispatch any sorry, just because your client didn't send any flow requests to broker to request any messages, and you can also track if there's any acknowledge coming from the consumer, because sometimes when you want to debug, like if my acknowledge is lost and causing I have duplicate messages, definitely use last act timestamp would help a lot, because you will know if the consumer is really sending the acknowledge to the broker. And performance side, I think there's bunch of going on. There's a lot of enhancements going on the key share side, and you can go to the release notes in to find the kind of the enhancement that we made there. So check the details. I'll probably just skip it in this talk. Uh, Stability. One of the major things that usually coming up is OOM, and OOM is can happen mostly happen on the direct memory OOM side. And it usually happen is if your producer keeps sending messages, but your storage, especially your broker, your bookkeeper cluster, is not able to keep up with the throughput you are sending over to the cluster, then you will cause the broker accumulate a lot of memory, and it would trigger OOM. So in 251, I believe it's also Peng Hui introducing a mechanism called max master publish buffer size in bytes. And this setting basically says in broker, this is the maximum buffer that is allowed for processing all the messages received from producer. If the broker have too many outstanding messages to the storage, and the storage is not able to process those messages fast enough, then the broker would stop reading new requests coming from the connections, and it would trigger a back pressure signal all the way to the producer. And the producer, because you are not able to send the message out, it would cause the producer pending the messages in its pending queue, and your producer would be slowed down, and you would then it will wait until the whole storage cluster finish processing those messages and acknowledge back to the broker, and broker acknowledge back to the producer, say I already finished producing those messages, and it will making room for making rooms for accumulating new messages coming from a producer. So in this way, you would avoid broker OOM. So definitely, if you are running broker in a very small footprint, like in terms of like 1 GB, 2 GB, consider like setting this maximum master publish buffer size in megabytes would definitely helping the stability for your broker cluster. So please try it out. And on the security side, there's a couple updates. Is I think before 251, I think we are using the bouncy castle provider, but it was really tied to a specific provider, but user is not able to switch to a different provider. And especially for some of the enterprise, we actually have customers that have strong requirements on the security side, and they want to use bouncy castle FIPS provider. Then with this change, you are able to kind of select what kind of a provider you want to use and to meet your security or your compliance requirements. So definitely check this out. Um, the other one is originally when mm, the subscription permission are kind of managed by all super user, and with in 251 we kind of changed the ability to allow tenant admin is able to manage the subscription permissions, and I think it makes more sense to that tenant admin to manage subscription permissions rather than super user doing that. On the client side, I think there's a lot of client changes as well. I just want to highlight two things. On Python client, we officially support 3.8. So if you're using Python 3.8, definitely check out 251. It's officially support. Uh, on the C++ client side, I think this is something very similarly with related to security. I think in one of the with our existing library, we kind of adding static SSL linking into the system. So in 251, we kind of providing uh, uh, two additional kind of library that doesn't statically link to SSL. It will rely on the SSL library you have on your machine and operating system. So you are able to comply to your security requirements if you are using C++ client and are have a very strong preference on the SSL library. So definitely check out these two like library. So you can choose the one that fit you the best. On the deployment side, I think I mentioned this before, and I also shared this in Slack channel in mailing this before. Is we officially moved the kind of a Helm chart to a separate repo. The original repo is not removed yet. We are kind of still working with the Apache infrastructure team to figure out how we want to publish the Helm chart, then so people can easily consume the Helm chart without cloning the repo. And but right now, the whole Helm chart deployment would have very comprehensive guidelines, especially how you want to configure uh, uh, a production-ready cluster. So it basically walks you through every aspects that you need to consider, like persistence, affinity, and TOS, authentication, authorization, and also as well as the resource, CPU and RAM resource requirements. So definitely check out the documentation. And if you are using Pulsar on running on Kubernetes, definitely contribute to this official Helm chart and to making sure we cannot maintain a high quality production ready Helm chart for everyone who start just get started with Pulsar. And a lot of bug fixes happening in 251 as well. I want to highlight a few is the TTL. If you're using TTL, definitely check out this bug is uh, I think before 251, Pulsar didn't very stick to the TTL, and it will cause some of the messages that are not expired be deleted before TTL time. So, and this bug was fixed. And we have a bunch of the regressions around get last message ID and has message available and in 250. So if you hit these problems, definitely check out 251. They are all fixed now. And SIG is another kind of area we have bunch of the fixes to making sure we provide a very high quality SIG behavior. And the last one is the topic compaction. I think um, we have bunch of corner cases that topic compaction doesn't handle very well. Like for example, topic compaction can fail on an empty topic, and topic compaction never ends if the value of the last master is an empty batch. Empty batch means a batch master with zero master, and it will fail with a topic with batch messages because it doesn't handle the flow request very well. And all these changes are kind of fixes. And so if you're using topic compaction, definitely check out these fixes. And it should be all fixed in 251. And we have a bunch of the enhancements around topic compaction coming up in master that will be included into 260. And I think we also have a lot of changes happening in schema, which I think I didn't get time to kind of put into this show notes. I want to cover one of that is the key value schema support. Key value schema support in Pulsar SQL. Basically Presto. Before the kind of the Presto, let me just show a quick example. So the Helm chart is able to uh, the Helm chart right now support Presto, so you are able to kind of deploy enable a component that running Presto. So it's called Presto coordinator, and you are able to kind of deploy a cluster of Presto worker, and you are able to scale up the Presto worker. So uh, before that, let me just use let me see. Yeah. Let me see if I have already have a screen. Uh, where's my okay, I have a screen here. No, I don't have the screen. So I already deploy a coordinator and as well as a set of workers. So then I can run process cycle. So I'm sorry about that. And let me just use the standard queries. So I have a bunch of the topics in my public default, and I'm running a source connector that is called the data generator to generate data. So you should be able to see this is the before behavior. So you basically have the because the data generator is only write the using Avro schema. So the value itself is Avro schema, but it doesn't have key, and it doesn't have any key value schema. So in this case is because the the topic that generated by this data generator is producing a person object, and the person object is stored in Avro. So when you run Presto Circle, you're able to see the kind of the fields for individual person. And but in a lot of case, you might also have key schema. And that was done by key value schema. So you basically including whether if you want just have key schema or value schema, but they're all packaged together into a key value schema. So if you run dbzim, when you connect the data from dbzim, it actually write the data in key value schema format. And in order for Presto to query the whole CDC data coming from DBGIM, Presto need to support key value schema. And it's now we added support in 251. So I actually kind of produce a simple uh, topic that is called, you should be able to see here. Uh, Actually, I think it's not perf topic. I think it's deleted because the inactive topic. So I need to rerun the command to produce topic. So I wrote a kind of a very simple example to produce a key value schema. Key is integer, value is a string, and I just write these to, let me see, what is the topic? Test topic. Um, so you're able to see test topic here. So if I select to test topic, so as you can see here, it actually so what? Let me explain. The program I used for the example, I wrote an example, is using the key value separate schema producer. Is produce a key value pair, and the key is integer, and the value is a string. So when we introduce these, when Presto query the topic, it will basically mapping the key schema to to be uh, to prefixed with underscore key. So all the fields for the key schema would be prefixed with underscore key, and the value would just be the same as a normal value you would be query from either Avro or JSON. In this example, as you can see here, by the way, we Presto not only support this Avro in JSON schema, but it also support this primitive schema. So in this example, because the value schema itself is a string, so when this display here, it's a kind of a string schema, string value. And because the key itself is a primitive schema, that is an integer. So when Presto query the string this topic, and it would listing out all the values. And the uh oh, I think it's too, let me see if you can see others. Okay, let me rerun this. You probably don't have the topic again. Let me run this because I didn't set retention, so it will quickly be deleted. There's no row yet. Mm-mm. Yeah. So as you can see here, the original key is still maintained, but because right now you kind of writing so you have key schema. So this when the key portion will be serialized in the format that specified by key schema. So what you can see here is kind of a base 64 encoded key bytes. But this is the key value is actually showing the fields that is encoded in the key schema. So that is kind of the example I want to show here is 251 kind of officially support key value schema. So if you are using CDC for building out your pipeline, you should able to connect your deep connector with Presto. So you can get your deep connector to get the data from your database and run a query to process the data in those CDC data. So that is kind of it unlocks a lot of new use cases that you're able to chain these different integration together. So I think we are running out of time, but that is the all the kind of content I want to cover in what is new in 251. Hopefully, there's some features you're looking for. There's some bug fixes you're looking for that would address all the kind of the issues you hit before, or kind of unblock you to use some of the features in Pulsar. Definitely give if you have any feedbacks, uh, please send us like email, ping us on Slack channel, follow us on Twitter if you want to get latest updates about Pulsar releases and anything about the integration of the Pulsar ecosystem. Just follow us on Twitter, and if you like our video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And the last thing is finally, I want to kind of give an update about Parcel Summit. And we kind of, after a few weeks working on that, we want to kind of hold the first Parcel Summit in a virtual format. So it will be called Parcel Summit Virtual Conference, and it should be coming up like around mid June, and we would have the announcement and blog posts and also emails coming up around next week, the week after. So just keep an eye on post on mailing list on Twitter, so you will get the updates about Posa Virtual Summit. Okay, that's all for today, and thank you for your time, and thank you for hanging out with me on TGIP. And if you like the episode and like all the content produced by us, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And thank you, everyone, and hope everyone have a great evening, a great night, and have a great weekend. And stay healthy and safe. And see you in next episode. Bye bye.